Hi, so my name's Olivia Gadd. I'm a founder and co-CEO of a company called Big Thinking Space. And I'll tell you a little bit about why I set up this company shortly, because it's all to do with my pet topic today, which is coaching behaviours to build a healthy culture. And more specifically, wanting to talk about leadership behaviour and how that impacts culture, and maybe some of the ways that we can work with leaders to help them develop their behaviour, to develop their culture, which will then improve their performance. First of all, I just really want to thank Fisher and Min and the team for this amazing series. I think it's brilliant that we have the opportunity to share such a diverse range of thoughts on different coaching approaches, impact of coaching, and how we can all develop our skills. So I'm very humbled and proud to be part of this series. First of all, a little bit about who I am. I'm now an accredited master coach with EMCC. I'm also an accredited supervisor and an accredited team coach. So I've really thrown myself into the coaching space to the point where now I teach coaching skills through EQA programs, so recognized EMCC qualifications, because I really believe in sharing these skills as widely as possible. Before all that, I had a 25-year executive career in large organizations, in consultancies and startups. I had a very varied career. Almost all of my work took me globally. So I've worked in most countries. I've worked with all cultures. And one of the things that I notice is however different cultures are, we're all fundamentally the same as human beings. And therefore, there's a lot around the psychology of coaching, which I think is important to everybody in the world, both in their working lives and more broadly. My background is in marketing, communications and strategy. I shifted from there into coaching. Gosh, about 12 years ago, I became an accredited practitioner. I moved up through senior practitioner to master coach over the years. And I have an MBA, so I'm mostly, I would say, rooted in business. I'm a very commercial person, and what I see is how important these skills are in a commercial context. So the sort of things that I wanted to share with you today, and I'll be interested in any questions that you have at the end of this, that we can talk a little bit more about what you think this means in your context, or if you challenge some of the things that I'm talking about, I'd love to hear that too. But I think that there's an important basis of everything that I'm going to say, which I touched on in my introduction, the importance of leadership behaviour in organizational culture. I believe that everything in the culture is rooted in the behavior of the leaders, because it doesn't matter what you say an organization is standing for or what it's about. If people don't see the leaders taking that role and taking those values seriously, it isn't true for them. And a strong organizational culture will result in better results. I am absolutely clear on that. And again, I'd love to know if you have any challenge on that. I want to talk a bit about where leadership behavior comes from. There's, again, some, I think, quite established ways of thinking about this. Interesting to hear if you have challenge. And then some approaches to impacting leadership behavior, because a lot of it doesn't change. So why is that, and how can it? So those are the three areas that I'd like to share with you today. So what have I noticed? Now, this is, I would say, a commonly understood idea. It may be new to some of you in the way that it's shared, but I'm hoping that you can recognize a direct link between the behavior of leaders and the experience of their people. And then from that experience to their output, so their performance, the results of the organization, and what happens for the clients or the customers or end users. So this is a deeply widely talked about concept, and it may be something that you're aware of. one thing that I really enjoy doing with groups of people, and it's an exercise that you can do for yourself, is to test this hypothesis by just looking at your own experience. So I've often asked groups of people and individual leaders to think about how this could be true. So if we first think about the negative side of leadership behavior, if you observe a leader who is very critical of a team's work, who wouldn't accept other ideas, who tells people, who doesn't ask a question, maybe someone who never gives praise. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I've certainly had leaders like this. This results in team behavior, which might be about a team being anxious, not wanting to ask for help or speak up, hiding issues because they're worried about the reception that they might get from the leader. And how this results for people, probably poor work product. There'll be a lack of trust within the team as well, as people are trying to figure out who is the boss being nice to and who not so much. If people won't ask for help or speak out, then they won't be innovating. And ultimately, people leave jobs like this if they possibly can. If they don't leave, then they're probably staying, but with their heads down and trying not to be noticed by a boss who isn't kind and supportive. So if you just spent a moment thinking about your own most challenging leader that you've worked with, you could think about the observed behavior. What did they actually do? And then think about, so how did that impact the team and what were the outcomes? So these might not be the words that you would choose to use. They might not be your experience. I think it's a really helpful exercise to really bring this to life, to think about your own experience. And like I said, it's a great group exercise or a team exercise to get people talking a bit more honestly about what they observe. So what about on the other side? So here's a more positive leadership behavior set. So someone who really promotes other people's ideas, asks lots of questions, encourages problem solving, and is humble and grateful for what they receive from the team. Well, chances are that the team will be more open, will want to have free discussions about ideas and possibilities. They will probably support each other and feel supported by their boss. And they will grow in skill because they'll be learning off each other, and they will feel free to admit when they don't know something, because they can know that they can get help. As a result, the outcome will be stronger performance. Innovation is only possible where people are allowed to fail, to challenge themselves, to look at new opportunities and different ways of thinking. You create a learning organization. People are learning from their own experience, but also from each other actively. And people stay. When we feel that we are supported, when we feel that we are in a team that cares about us, with a leader who cares about us, we don't have many reasons to leave. So that's my premise. And again, with the positive behaviours, interesting to ask either someone that you coach who's maybe looking for leadership coaching, or a team or a group if you are talking to an organisation about their culture or about their leadership styles. It's really interesting. None of this is rocket science. None of this is that clever, if you ask me. We all know this through our own lived experience. So the question would be, why are leaders behaving as they do? Why are we in this space? Well, again, another model which is well used, but really thinking about that, sort of, maybe think about it as a traditional form of leadership. The belief for so many leaders is, I should be perfect and have all the answers. I'm the boss. I have to be right. So this means that they're not going to be consulting with others, not looking for feedback, don't want input because they've got it right. This means that they will tend to tell people what to do. They will give the right answer, and they won't want to be questioned about whether it's the best answer for this circumstance. So the behavior is controlling, it's resistant, and it's defensive. So where does this come from? And I would argue that, a lot of us have come through our careers being the expert. And that's what we've been paid to be. We've been paid to get the right answers. We don't like to fail. So as a leader, bringing all of those traits forward, it's so easy to be in a space where, because you're so scared of anyone else knowing more than you, or not being seen as the expert, or maybe of failing at what you're doing, these beliefs, impact styles and behaviours can easily become true. So what about the other side? A more progressive approach might be a belief that I'm striving for growth and I'm not perfect. So if you have a leader in that space, then the chances are that they will consult with others. They will question and seek feedback, question themselves, and ask for others' input. Their style, therefore, will be a collaborative, engaging, and empowering style, because they are looking to the wider team to find answers. So they're listening, they're leading with questions, they're open, and they are humble. So this comes from an inner confidence. This is from knowing that growth is what you're looking for yourself, for others, and for the organization. So if we have a leader who is in that space and is really asking others and collaborating, some people might call that all sorts of things. Certainly in the 70s, the idea of the servant leader was born. So this isn't new. It isn't new. And isn't it strange that it isn't everywhere? It isn't common to see these really progressive leaders who are reaching out and helping others to grow, encouraging innovation through questioning everything that they know and they do, listening to the beginner's mind of someone who knows less than them, who challenges things from first principles. So why doesn't it happen every day? So if leadership isn't changing, why? What's going on? Now, in my own reflections, as I said, I've had a long executive career. I've been through so many different programs and courses. I've sat in workshops. I've been in some of the best business schools in the world. I've been with really niche, exciting facilitators who really get you to think. But actually, my behavior didn't really change as a leader. And I would absolutely put myself in that traditional leadership space. I was brittle in my belief about my own abilities, and therefore I needed to show everyone that I was best and that I was right. And I totally accept that that was where I always was. The one thing that really changed me was when I started learning coaching skills. So for me, it really helped me to challenge myself and to reflect on my impact and think about how I behaved and how that led the team to think about themselves, their work, and about me. Now, funnily enough, I'm going to flip back. These progressive behaviors, this impact and style, I could argue that these are all coaching skills. So if we have the mindset of a coach as a leader, and we have questions at the forefront, and we believe in enabling others' potential as a coach does, then maybe, just maybe, we could be that leader that creates a culture of growth and results that are remarkable. So having been through this process myself of learning to be a coach and increasingly spending more of my time studying and reflecting on my behavior and learning more about the psychology that we as coaches focus on, I had the great opportunity to be involved with teaching at a practitioner level program. Having spent some time developing it and really thinking about how to make it something which was not about soft behaviors, but actually some of these behaviors are really hard to change and a really hard impact when you get them right and when you get them wrong. So I have been working for the last 5-6 years on teaching leaders coach skills. And I wanted to share with you a few case studies because I think that might help bring to life how it can work. As I said, I work globally, so although I'm from the UK and my perspective originates there, I've worked with a number of people. The slides are very busy, a lot of words on there because of the two languages, but hopefully you can read, and I will explain what I'm saying here. So I've worked with a really interesting, dynamic, growing firm in India. They're looking to differentiate in the market, and they had done quite a lot of work in the background. So they'd introduced coaching skills for managers. But they saw no real change in retention or performance. So they felt, oh, well, then coaching isn't the only answer. So they then spent a lot of money on a culture change program. And what they noticed in that was where the leaders really adopted the change, performance did follow. So back to what I was saying before about leadership and culture and performance, they really did notice that where leaders jumped in and adopted the thinking of the change program and the desired culture change, there really was a difference. So then we did something quite unusual. We reviewed with them the coaching skills that they'd shared with their managers. They weren't really deep coaching skills. There was an encouragement to ask questions. Actually, I would say it was mentoring, but not mentoring in its best sense. It was asking questions and then jumping in with the traditional answering them for your person anyway. So we worked with this organization to roll out mass leadership training in advanced coaching skills. So taking them to practitioner level at EMCC. So, this is a real investment in the leaders and in the firm and the future. It takes a lot of time. You will know how long coach training can take. And what has happened? So we've done, 4 cohorts of people going through these programs, and we're setting up to do some more. What they're seeing almost immediately was the leaders questioning how they felt about the hierarchy. Did they still retain the power of leadership by not answering all the questions and not giving all the solutions? But what they found right from the very first coaching sessions was even people who they thought that they really knew well in their team, they really didn't know at all. And so they were digging into the whole person and starting to understand their perspective in different ways and holding up a mirror to those ways to the person that they were coaching. Talent retention has really improved. And one of the things that's been interesting is a number of them, right from the beginning of starting to develop as a coach, changed the way that they recruited as well. So having been an organization that wanted to differentiate in the market, right from recruitment, the way that they would bring people in, they'd ask them a lot about themselves. They'd ask them a lot about their aspirations, about their interests out of work. And so they recruited much more engaged people right from the start. They also retained people who had lost their way or lost their belief in the organization, because the challenge of a dynamic growing firm is there's lots for everyone to do. And as we know, if there's a lot of challenge and a lot of drive and little support, people can burn out very quickly. This changed, again, fairly rapidly as we got more and more people through the program and really practicing as coaches for their people in extended 90-minute coaching sessions, but also in laser sessions where they might spend 30 minutes just chatting with someone. And also just in conversations, in meetings, taking a different approach to listening. So client satisfaction also grew because innovation grew. I don't have the information to share in terms of data because it's not mine to share, but we do know from what the organization has told us that they are growing their work with each client, and each client is getting more satisfied. And also they have lost some clients who didn't want a more questioning, thoughtful approach and weren't paying them well, they actually have an understanding that they don't need clients like that because they've got others who are really buying into them. So commercially, this has been an excellent project and idea for this organisation. I think what's really important is they recognise coaching skills were important. They introduced those skills to managers, and those managers weren't seeing the leaders of the organisation really expressing the same approach. So it didn't stick, because that's not what leaders do, it's what managers do. What the managers do is they take the coaching skills that they were given and they watch the leaders and adapt them. And at the time, the leaders were still doing a lot of telling and not a lot of listening. This has really changed by doing the high-level training for the high-level leaders. So another example, a national organisation in the US had spent traditionally huge amounts of money on development, on mentoring, executive coaches. Often coaching and mentoring would be corrective. So it wasn't enhancing someone's performance so much as sorting them out or letting them go. Performance was quite average. Staff turnover was high and the culture was anxious. So again, if someone said, I want to sit down and have a coaching conversation with you, kind of meant you're not doing very well and I want to sort you out or get you gone. So there was a lot of understanding that change was needed, but really they weren't embracing what was possible when they changed their leadership behavior. So we started again with a pilot cohort of their highest performing leaders, and a lot of whom we had great conversations at the beginning about how they already did lots of coaching. Yeah, no, we coach our people all the time. After a little bit of learning, after a little bit of practice, there was an admission that what they were doing wasn't what we called coaching. Again, it was sort of a mentoring, but really telling. So it was still very much the leader as the expert, and the person that they were coaching was just someone who was there to take on the leader's wisdom. So this organisation, has invested a lot in development, and they have a leadership rating. So they have a survey with upward scores as people review their leaders on how they are enabling them, what they're doing to support them, and how they run the business. So the people that we had on the cohort as the pilot were the highest performing in this league table. And almost straight away, their rating increased and has continued to rise. So actually what happened is, having done the pilot, the word got out that this is not coaching as we know it. There are other skills that we could use. Really leaning in and listening. I think that's one of the things that people get most surprised about. They notice how little they listen to other people and their concerns. Asking questions and looking for options. One of the things we will always say to people is, it's not the first thing that comes out of someone's mouth if you're looking for options. It's not necessarily the third. Maybe get them to think of 10 different ways they could solve a problem or a situation or change what they're doing. And then really investigate each of those so that you're digging so much deeper. And because the word had got out, we had volunteers for a second cohort before we'd even started advertising it. So again, the point isn't just to say, gosh, how clever we are. It's that when the leaders were experiencing these skills live in the field, when they were in the office and using them, talking to clients and customers, when they were having the opportunity to just ask another question, just understand a little bit more before they gave the answer as they always had. They found that they were learning as people, they were growing more confident in their ability to deal with difficult situations because they knew they didn't have to have the answers. The third case study is an ASEAN 5 collaboration group. So this is an interesting group of companies. They have some shared projects, they have some shared ambitions, but they were really struggling with how different they were and the expectations within the different companies of each other, of behaviour, of performance, of how they worked with their clients. It led to a lot of frustration and nearly the end of the collaboration group. They were really stuck with how they could work together really well. So we ran some sessions, first of all, some workshops to discuss all of these things, and then we suggested that we might have a skill set that could be useful for the leaders of the companies. So actually we were working in a team coaching environment, but also within that we would step out and do some workshops on skills, then bring them back into the team coaching environment and see how that was working for people. I don't know your experience, but I've often seen that when people learn together and they're coaching each other in their practice as they're learning the skills, they really build deep bonds and a real understanding of each other. There were some differences in culture, which suddenly became clear to them, but also just in personal circumstance, in shared values, which maybe weren't as overlapping as they had thought. So being able to really dig into, so what is important to you and how does that affect our partnership and how could it change the way that we partner together for this collaboration group? They are talking about running skills sessions further down each of the organizations. They're not big organizations, so they're trying to work out how that works for them, but they can really see the benefit and are talking about how to do that. But the common culture that they are starting to really build has been noticed by the clients, and the team is much more dedicated. And I say the team of companies is much more dedicated to each other, to these shared projects and to their customer base. So again, it's the opportunity for people to put into practice what we as coaches may seem as the fundamental skills, really building rapport with someone. Taking a moment to understand where your energy is before you launch into having a conversation. Reading what someone else's energy is doing for them. Being curious and holding back our assumptions. Avoiding being judgmental. All of these really core skills as a coach, I truly believe are the areas that leaders can build on. So in conclusion, the skills of a progressive, servant, transformational leader, however you want to phrase this type of leadership, they are the skills of a coach. So if you are working with leaders as a coach, I'm really curious, how could you bring your experience to them and help them to question their own behavior through maybe little experiments of trying things out? Like other adults, leaders really best learn by doing, experimenting, reflecting, and being held to account. So having a coach through the process of learning some of these skills, I think could be so invaluable, of just being able to talk with that common language of, reflecting on what went well, what could you have done even better, and how are you going? Really good feedback to oneself. With this learning comes a lot of reflection of aspects of the organization, the culture, and the purpose of the organization. And so we've found that as people are learning these skills, they're questioning lots of other aspects, not just their own leadership choices and behavioral choices, but maybe the way that the organization is designed. Is it designed human-centrically? Are people at the heart of the way that it's built? We've come across other clients who, for example, have a triple matrix. I don't know if that translates well into your world, but where they are looking to one person for their geography, to one person for leadership around their skill base, to another person for leadership around their industry knowledge. And it's very hard to understand all of that. We can all wear different hats in business, but we do need to know where we sit. So some really interesting organizational redesign has come on the back of some of our coaching experiments with our clients. And really understanding the purpose of a business. I think it was very, very fashionable to talk about purpose of business a while ago. It seems to be less talked about now, but it is fundamental, isn't it? To really understanding what you're doing, why you're doing it, and for whom. With the reflection of coaching, we've had a lot of leaders come back to us for different conversations, not just on coaching skills, but then the what next. Leadership behavior, like any other behavior, doesn't change just from reading a book. It really makes a difference when you do practice, back to experimenting, trying something out and then reflecting on what was good, what was bad, what felt right, what maybe was a bit of a challenge. And was it a challenge because it was the wrong thing to do, or just because it was hard, because it's a new skill? You need to lean into it more. And the organizational culture can blossom. And again, we've seen people at all levels being really grateful to each other for that different culture. So that's what I wanted to share. It's my experience. And as you can see, I've really dug into understanding how it can help organizations and individuals. So thank you for your time in listening to me. There's my contact details. As I say, my company is Big Thinking Space, and that's my email address. And I'm also on LinkedIn as Olivia Gadd. I would love to talk to anybody, firstly in the Q&A that's coming up, but also one-to-one, or maybe in a discussion on LinkedIn about how we as coaches can really support leaders to lead beautifully so that organizations are delightful, so that performance increases without burnout and without challenge. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. So now this is the Q&A part. So I saw there are two audiences, more than two audiences in our Zoom. So if you have any questions, please put it out. But at first, I think Xinhua has a questions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Olivia.
Yeah, thank you.
Sharing.
Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm actually had a kind of a curiosity for your personal experiences. You've mentioned that you talked to different people, didn't get change, but somehow joining this coaching class has changed your. So I wonder what happened. What was the magical there made this shift to you?
So thanks for your question, and Olivia, I will interpret what Xinhua said first, and then you answer. Yeah, thank you very much. 刚刚新华就是我们有一位观众提了一个问题，他对于就是 Olivia 的平生有很大的好奇心，因为他就是接触到不同的人，然后有就是20-30年的工作经验、高管经验，但是为什么他会突然转变，会去做 coach？ 是发生了什么东西？是 coach 有什么样的魔力，然后吸引他去从事这样的工作 ？Yeah, I'm finished. Yeah.
Thank you, Min. Thank you, Chua. I think pretty much what I was saying about we don't really learn from books. We don't learn just from being told what's a better way to be. And certainly that was true for myself. So I went on a coach development program. I learned a lot about myself and my choices. And I started to notice, I thought I was a really good coach before I did the training. And what I learned during the training is that I'm actually just quite good at persuading people that my view is right. And so actually taking the time to listen, to learn how to keep my own thoughts at the back of my mind and keep someone else's thoughts at the front of my mind, to be open to very different perspectives. It was really eye-opening that I thought I was a much better leader than I honestly was. And that led me to talk to other people about leadership and coaching, and it sort of continued from there. And I do notice that the difference is in practicing, reflecting, and experimenting, not just reading a book and thinking, oh, I'll be like that. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So I will translate, then you can discuss more. 就是 Olivia 她其实就是对于学习管理或者是领导力方面的东西，其实她觉得就是只是读书，从书本上得到知识终觉浅，然后如果只是别人告诉你的知识也是非常浅薄的，那就是别人告诉你成为一个什么样的人也是非常的就是不靠谱的。那最重要的是就是他有一次他去参加了一次的教练的一个项目，然后他当时就学会了怎样做自己，然后怎样发掘自己的自我意识。他发现其实自己之前就可能是一个有作为好的教练的潜质他发现他自己是一个容易让人信服的人当时他就是于是他就花了很多的时间去做倾听，然后去思考，然后去就是听取不同的意见，然后他发现尽管在这些不同的意见之中，他也能够保持自我。就是等于他就是发掘了自己一个很好的教练潜质。他当时就是在这种跟人与人之间的交流和沟通当中，他发现这是非常的让就是开阔眼界的事情。而且在这个过程中，他的领导力也是不断的提升。于是他觉得这是一个非常好的方式让他不断的进步。所以呢，在他的认知当中，觉得不断的练习不断的反思，不断的去实验，不断的去实践，是一个好的培养领导力的方法，对，而不只是从书本上得到知识。Yeah. So, here we have a question. Yes. So Olivia, you mentioned mentoring and coaching in your webinar. So people tend to use mentoring in the workplace, but they often didn't use the true and authentic mentoring. So we are wondering, what is the true mentoring? And if leaders only know a very few or very superficial mentoring and use it, what kind of harm will this bring to employees?
Okay, do you want to say that also in Chinese, or do you want me just to answer?
Oh, yeah. 就是刚刚就是 Olivia 在自己的讲座中提到了导师和教练这两个概念那就是人们就是他也提到了在就是工作当中，其实就是领导者他倾向于有时候会用到关于导师的技巧，但是他们其实根本就没有用到真正的导师技巧，往往这会对就是员工会带来伤害。我想问就是这是带来了什么样的伤害？然后什么才是真正的导师技术呢？
Thank you.
Yes, I'm finished. Yeah.
I'll answer this in a few bits to make it easier for you to translate. Otherwise, it could be tricky.
Sure.
I would suggest that there's a spectrum with coaching, really deep coaching where you're not directing and you are really following someone else's thinking and not giving your own solutions here. Maybe in the middle, there's mentoring where you are using a lot of coaching skills, but also bringing your experience. And then over here, there's just telling people your answers. Do you want to start with that?
Yes. So 其实它就像一个线谱一样，他们就是关于就是 coaching 方面它是不会直接的去给指导，不会告诉你方向，然后它会就是更倾向于去跟随就是对方的想法就是但是不会给出自己的一些就是很多的建议等等。那如果左边是 coaching， 那么中间它是 mentoring 是导师。那导师呢，他是倾向于就是他也会用到关于教练的一些技巧，但是他也会就是基于自己的经验会给出一些答案。
Okay, so I would say that a lot of the people that I've spoken to when they've said that what they do is mentoring, They're really just telling. So if they went to ask, if someone came to them and asked them how to get a promotion, they would immediately start telling them the answer, feeling that they're mentoring them, rather than maybe taking a step back, being more question-led, asking why they want the promotion, what will it give them, how satisfied do they want to be, is this the right direction? So all of those questions, I would say, would come first, rather than immediately just answering the question. And a lot of people will say, well, mentoring is sharing my own experience. So when someone says, oh, how do I get a promotion? They go, I'll tell you what I did. But again, what they did might not be relevant. So I think it's about using my scale again. Mentoring isn't over here. I think it's further towards coaching, where you're really understanding the mentee's needs, their perspective, getting them to do some of their own thinking and sharing, and then selectively sharing your own experience. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. 关于导师呢，他可能就是更倾向于，就是当你会问到，就是我怎样才能够升职，那导师可能就会马上给出你意见啊，关于怎么样去升职。那可能教练他会就是当然这其中教练就会倾向于问为什么，那就是你为什么想要升职？那你通过升职可以得到什么？那你通过升职有什么就是更让你满意的地方？那导师他会分享自我的经验，有时候虽然所以说如果你要成为一个很好的就是导师的话，首先呢，你要非常确切的去了解到你的就是学员的需求，你学员的观点和你学员的想法，而且选择性的去给出自己的意见，而不是就是给出一些不相关的意见。
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess my final part on that is a question I ask a lot of people is mentoring what the person needs? So they might come to you with a question that feels like something you could mentor them on and share a lot of your experience. I do encourage people to question, is your personal experience helpful to their thinking? Maybe there are other ways to think about how we support people rather than always giving our answer. So even having listened to someone else's answers, is it sensible for their thinking, for their future, to be sharing your own? Or do you actually just stop there? Maybe you introduce them to some people, which is also, I would say, mentoring. You use your resources to support them. But that might not include your story, or it might. But it's really about giving some thought as to what would be the most useful support for someone, rather than just defaulting to telling them what you did. Thank you.
Yeah. 所以关于就是无论是导师还是教练呢，那其实最重点的是就是要引发他们思考，而不是只是要么就是直接的就是给出自己答案就是告诉他你应该怎么做。最重要的是要引发思考，然后知道他们真的是需要什么东西可能通过提问呢，还有等等一些支持，甚至你可能会给他提供更多的资源来帮助他。但是最重要的一点就是无论这样方式是什么，但是就是要引发他的思考，知道他自己要什么，通过他的观点和他自己的想法去给到他支持。
命我还可以问一个问题吗？
Yeah, sure, please. So you can speak Chinese.
对，我的问题是，我会好奇 Olivia 在做团队教练的时候，会不会 involve， 就是会不会让那个 leader 也参与到其中？他做或者不这么做的原因是什么？所以我要讲
So Olivia.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can directly speak English to Olivia. Yeah.
Another question of curiosity. Olivia, what is your practice when you're doing team coaching? Do you normally involve the leader into the process, or you just work with the team alone?
Like so many things, it depends It depends on the need and the circumstance. I personally feel that the leader should be closely involved, and sometimes they don't fit in the room to start with, if that makes sense, and sometimes they do. So it's very much about what the individuals and the team as a whole need. But yes, absolutely. I think it's better if the leader is seen as part of the team and not floating around somewhere else. So yeah, I prefer to have the leader involved, but sometimes the team isn't ready for that.
Yeah, thank you. 刚刚的问题是，就是在 Olivia 在做团队教练的时候，那就是往往会不会让领导的高层去参与到这个其中呢？那邀请他们参与进来是什么原因，而没有邀请他们参与进来又是什么原因呢？刚刚他的回答是，这个 Olivia 他会在做团队教练的时候，他会根据情况来他在他的认知当中，他觉得教练是的确领导他的确是应该要就是紧密的，就是非常就是积极的去参与到这个团队教练当中的，因为他也是团队中的一员。但是有时候可能没有做好准备，或者有时候会有一些冲突，那就是对，就有时候就没有领导就不会参与进来，对。
Thank you, Min.
So here's another question. So because you are very experienced in being an executive in many big companies, but later you became a professional coach. So I think you must spend many times secretly reflecting, thinking over and over. So it must be based on a very clear self-awareness. So during your teaching, then you became a very professional coach. Then you can teach others. So during your teaching, teaching knowledge is very easy. But how do you use your tacit knowledge, the tacit knowledge, and then coach your clients and coach the next generation of the coach?
Okay, do you want to say that in Chinese while I think of my answer?
I just want to say, how do you condense those days and nights to think, and then you teach to your students? Yeah. 刚刚问题是Olivia 她有就是很多年的高管经验，但是在这之后她成为了一个非常专业的教练。我想就是在这个过程中，她一定是有经历过日日夜夜的思考，很多的反思，不断的实践所以说她就是应该是有一个非常的慢慢的会形成一个非常清晰的自我认知。那现在她成为了一个教练。而且他也参与到教学活动，就是教学，就是教练团队等等。所以我想问，在这个教学过程中，教授知识是很简单的，但是他是如何利用自己的隐形知识去带动这些学生，然后把自己那些日日夜夜就是能够就是获得的一些经验传授给他的学生们的。Yeah, thank you very much.
So I think I understand the question. And I'm going to check with you if I have understood it. So I think the question is, because I have a lot of practical experience in business and I have a lot of coaching experience, how do I then teach coaching without telling? Is that the question?
Yes, because when you teach your students or your clients, the other coaches, you may spend, so the program only lasts maybe 2 months or 3 months, but this is experience you accumulate for many years. So how do you transfer and extract those elite experience to those you serve, your clients.
Yeah, okay. So the sorts of programs that we run, to become a practitioner level, it isn't a 2-month program, it's like a year or more.
Yeah.
And if it's lesser skills, kind of more in EMCC, like foundational levels, it might be 6 months. So we extend the programs enough so that we work with the students to do the experiments I was talking about. Because actually me teaching them doesn't, it gives them the information. It doesn't change the behavior. So I would say it's over the course of a year or more. If they keep experimenting and trying things out and reflecting on whether it works, they change their own behavior. They teach themselves. The trick is to have students who really want to learn and want to change. So our workshops are very experiential. We get them to have lots of little aha moments, especially in the first sort of 3 or 4 hours of teaching, so that they start to recognize and feel how different it is when it's question-led than when it's experience-led. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So, 就是刚刚 Oliver 解释到，其实在教练的那个项目当中，就是培训项目当中，其实是不仅仅是几个月，而是1年的时间。那有时候短的时候就可能只有6个月，但是通常他在教授自己的学生或者是其他的储备教练的时候，他会就是以实验的方法去就是陪伴他们一起实验，来帮助他们去成长。你有时候你教授的只是信息他们不一定会吸收，但是你会教授他们自己去做实验，动手去思考，然后他们自己会慢慢的就是知道那种感觉是怎么样的，然后慢慢的自己的行为也会改变，所以这就是所谓他们最后是自己教自己。那就是最重点是在于他的那些学生，他们是自己有自主意识，他们想要改变，想要学习。所以说他通常是通过工作坊的方式去做实验，去实践，来获得就是更快速的去获得这些教练的技巧。So I think the 1 year took a long time. Maybe.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
So I think 1 year maybe took a long time. So should have any methods to be more effective and efficient? Not only just
I think the only thing that changes behavior is a choice to change it and trying things out and experimenting. So that, for me, so far has taken about 15 years, but it will take longer. There's no perfection. So every time we have an opportunity to reflect on what we've done and what we haven't done, we can act on that and we can learn more. It takes forever.
Thank you. So 这个关键的原因还是在于要去实践和实验。那就是 Olivia 花了可能15年的时间去获得这些经验，但是对于他来说，每一次的获得反思的机会和每一次触发他反思的机会，都是一种非常宝贵的经验。所以说这个东西没有完美的，或者说这个时间长短也没有什么完美，重要的是你要获得那个能让你反思的机会。Yeah. So here's another question.
Okay.
So yeah. So you mentioned soft behaviors in the webinar. So the soft behavior is hard to change, but it impacts a lot if it's wrong or it's right. So could you give 2 examples respectively when it's right or when it's wrong.
Okay. Do you want to say that in Chinese before I answer?
Yeah, sure. 就是通常我们在工作场上说到的软实力或者是软领导力和软技能行为，那它是很难改变的，它不像硬实力这样可以容易上手习得的。那其实他在他的讲座当中提到了，这个会对于人有很大的影响。就是如果他是错误的一种行为，或者是一种正确的行为，那就是想要 Olivia 给出一些例子。当这种软行为，就是软技能行为是正确的时候，或者是错误的时候，有些什么样的例子
？Okay. I really don't like the term soft skills because it makes out that treating the way that we interact with people isn't a proper hard thing to do. Because actually, for a lot of people, it's the hardest part of work is being capable and competent with how they deal with other people. So I think it is the hard skills. And so soft skills I find difficult as a concept. But when we talk about behavior, I mean, I shared, some of those examples in the exercise I talked through about, what does a leadership behavior look like that maybe is creating an undesirable feeling within the culture, which is then not leading to a great outcome. Some examples, I would say if a leader only ever knows the right answer, so no one else knows the right answer, only the leader, then actually what happens is the leader is the one who has to answer all the questions. So then the leader has to work all of the hours, do all of the work, and the team are just using their answers. There's so much wrong with that in my mind. It doesn't help people to think for themselves. It doesn't help people to understand how to get to a good answer. It means that the leader is always on and will slow the team down because they have to give all of the answers. I could go on and on. There are so many things wrong with that choice. And the result for the organization isn't going to be good for lots of reasons too. But so at a very simple level, that one thing of like, you ask me what the answer is, I'll tell you, is going to lead to poor results for the team, for how they feel about themselves, for how they work, and for the work product. Another example, I know some leaders who never really talk to their team. They go straight to their office or their desk. They sit there, and when they want someone, they will tell them to come in, but you don't go to the boss unless you're invited. And when they leave, they don't talk to their team. I can't think of anything good about that behavior, actually. I don't see how it benefits anyone. I suppose the leader might be very introverted, but we all have issues that we need to deal with. And, we are, at the end of the day, organizations aren't machines. We are not cogs. We are humans. We need interaction. We need to build trust and understanding, even in small ways. So I think for any behavior, you can reflect on what you've seen in your own working experience, on the impact it has on others, and decide whether it's a useful or unuseful behavior. So it's quite a long answer, and I'm not sure if it really touched on the points well, but I'll leave it for you, Min, to translate.
Yeah, I will summarize what you have said. Yes. 关于刚刚他举了2个例子，第一个就是有的领导他可能就是知道正确的答案，他可能相比于其他的人更加能够知道什么是正确的答案，所以说但这样的人他可能就是 会把所有的东西都就是在自己身上去加在自己身上。比如说，他会工作很长时间去做所有的事情，因为只有他知道什么事情怎样做才是对的，做出什么样的事情。那就是可能他的团队就直接会不会思考，就直接会使用领导给出的答案那他们这是一个不健康的一个就是文化氛围，这样其实反而会就是延缓了团队成长的速度，这是不好的。那另外一种领导呢，他可能就是根本就不会跟就是团队之间交流，那他们就是直接早上来上班就直接进到办公室，他也不会邀请你来，就是一起去交流。那当他下班的时候，也就直接离开。那有可能是出于他们的性格是内向的，所以说造成这样的情况。但是呢，对于组织来说，我们就是组织里的人，我们不是机器，也不是军队，那我们是真正的人有血有肉的人。我们需要通过很小的一些就是触动和链接，来互相的就是产生信任，来产生一些人际关系的交往。所以说，这就是两个不同的就是领导造成的一些影响，领导风格造成的影响。So, do you want to add more, or just this is?
I think that's all I've got on that.
Yeah, thank you. So, 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 do we have anyone have any other questions? So I think there's a final question for you. Yeah. So we really agree on what you have said. Leadership behavior will not change through reading business books. So, and we really agree on we need to develop through doing, experimenting, reflecting, and other methods. So do you have any suggestions on how to develop leadership behavior and integrate it into real life in the very beginning of our career as a freshman, a green hand? Because I think as a green hand, as a freshman, we don't have really cases or situations to practice our leadership. Yeah. So how to develop it, not only through reading books.
Okay. Do you want to translate first?
Yeah. 就是Olivia 在自己讲座中提到了一句话，就是领导力的行为，它往往就是不是只是通过阅读商业书籍、管理书籍而获得的。那就是我们也很赞同他关于就是如果要培养领导力，我们需要去实践，需要去实验，需要不断的反思等等一些方法去就是培养自己的领导力。那我们想要就是 Olivia 给出一个建议，就是作为一个新生或者一个初入职场的菜鸟，那他没有那么多机会去实践自己领导力的时候，应该怎么样去培养自己的领导力，而不是只是通过就是读书，因为纸上就是终觉浅嘛，纸上读来终觉浅。Yeah, thank you. I'm finished. Yeah.
Thank you, Min. I think you don't have to be a leader to make an impact, and I also think that I go back to doing is a great way of learning. There are so many people with such great thinking that you can read a book, but the point is don't stop at reading the book. So, or watch a video on YouTube or TED Talk or whatever other options that you have available to you, but then actually choose to do something about it. So one of my absolute favorite thinkers around the space of listening is Nancy Klein. And she, Nancy Klein, K-L-E-I-N. And she...
So it's a name? It's
a name.
Yeah.
So I'm going to type it in here.
is Nancy Klein.
And she wrote a book called Time to Think. So I put it into the chat.
Yes.
And she tells a beautiful story about her own life and how really listening to other people is such a valuable skill, and so few of us are ever really listened to. And so she talks about how often people are just listening to find their own answers, or listening to give their own solution, or listening so that they've got a chance to jump in and sound clever or funny, or they're just reloading the next thing they were going to say, even if they hadn't heard what they just heard. So if you take a little piece of knowledge like that from Nancy, you can think, for the next week, I'm going to notice how I listen. Not change anything, just notice, and maybe reflect each time. Make a note. When I was talking to Min the other day, I heard her talking, but I was actually thinking about something else. Make a note. When I was speaking to Xiuhua the other day, I was really sure I knew the answer. So every time she not almost completed a thought, I cut in and I told her what I thought. Write it down. So then maybe you've got a week of how have you been listening or not listening. And then maybe the next week you can say, well, I'm going to really focus on being quiet, on letting someone finish what they think. Even if my head is still quite noisy with thoughts, I won't share them. I will really try to listen. And then reflect on that. How did that work? And then the next week, maybe make sure that you quiet your mind. You know, if you enjoy meditation or some breathing exercises before you have a conversation, quieten your own thoughts and see how that affects your listening. So I would say for anyone doing, designing and trying lots of little experiments for how you can change your behavior, and then keeping with it. It's so easy to do something like that for a week or two and then forget and go on to the next business book and what they think. I think if you really want to make a change, you have to commit yourself for an amount of time to really notice what you're doing, the impact of it, what you could do differently, the impact of that, what you could do differently again, the impact of that. And through that, you learn what is true for you. Another long answer, Min, I apologize.
No, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah. So 关于就是刚刚的答案是，那刚刚 Olivia 他就是支持我们是在实践中去学习的。那其实你可以去选择去读书，去培养自己的领导力，但是呢，不仅仅是通过读书去就是学习这个事情，你也可以去选择去看一些视频啊，比如说在 YouTube 上面就是你要有自己的选择性什么适合你的。那当然呢，除了看和听，那你要做些什么东西？那他就是有一本书是由 Nancy Klein 他写的一本书，叫做《是时候该思考了》。我只是简单的翻译一下，是时候该思考了。那这本书的原的名称叫做 Time to Think。那我想就是这本书应该是教人去怎么样去思考的。那他说了一个，他那个 Nancy 他在自己的书中说到了一个非常有趣的故事就是说我们要怎么样去倾听他人，非常强调如何去倾听他人这是一个非常重要的技巧也就是有时候人们他听着听着就慢慢的找到了自己的答案。那通过 Nancy 的这个故事，Olivia 建议就是我们要做不同的实验，就是以一周的频率去做实验。比如说这一周我就是要有意识的，就是让自己培养那种意识，去注意到自己是怎么样聆听的。那我可能会写下来自己的聆听方法，就比如说这次我聆听这位同事，下一次我聆听这位同事写下来自己的一些心路历程，我是怎么样去听的，哪些地方我听到了，有些地方我没有听得特别好，就是当然这种听是用心去，然后在下一周的时候我不选择听了，我选择保持安静。那无论我的脑海中怎样就有多少的声音想要去倾诉，但是呢我都不会去选择去分享， 就保持安静，然后我去反思我现在这个状态是怎么样的一样的就要记录下来。在接下来1周的时候呢，我可能会在发言之前，在输出我自己的想法之前，我可能会做一些 meditation， 做一些冥想，或者是做一些呼吸课的练习，然后再去发言，这又记录下来自己那个时候什么样的状态，就不断的每一周通过这小实验，然后去看自己到底是怎么样去实践到我们在书中或者是在就是视频中学到的那些知识的。所以说，当你看了一本书之后，你不仅仅是看完一本书，那你要去选择要去做实验，要做点什么，你一定要去花时间花自己的精力去实践里面的那些书中带给你的小技巧，这样你才能够真正的去培养你看到的这些知识，然后把自己就是会融会贯通，真正变成自己的一种能力。Yeah, so thank you very much, Olivia. Yeah, I think due to the time limit, our webinar should come to the end. So thank you very much again. Yeah.
Thank you, Min, and thank you for your amazing interpretation skills. It can't be easy. It's a difficult subject. I'm talking too much, and you did a beautiful job. So thank you so much for supporting me in reaching this audience. And thank you to the audience for taking the time to listen to my thoughts. Thank you.
Yes, it's really lovely, and I'm really enjoying with communicating with you. Yeah.
Thank you.
So next I will introduce the EMCC. So you can still in the Zoom. Yeah. 刚刚 Olivia 给大家带来了非常精彩的就是演讲。那 Olivia 她是 EMCC 认证的大师级导师，她也是 EMCC 认证的团队教练和教练督导。那如果您对就是 EMCC 国际认证导师感兴趣，请扫码关注。因为呢，我们就是导师和我们一起开启一项没有天花板的事业我们在11月份会开课。那在导师界呢，我们就是流传着5句金句。第一个是要选对方向。那导师的首要任务是帮助学员明确发展的方向。那方向错了，与结果会渐行渐远。方向确定后，导师激励挖掘学员的无限潜能，令其快速有效的达到目标。那第二个，导师他会帮助你提升能量。能量的提升和事物的完成会同时推进。导师辅导过程，它不仅仅强调达成目标，它也更注重在达成目标的过程中，你学员能量级和状态的提升。第三是会帮助你激活你内在和外在的资源，就正如刚刚 Olivia 提到的，他可能就是导师会为你提供资源，会让你发掘身边的资源。那第4个是成果量化。那导师辅导过程中呢，就是会通过关键绩效指标和关键行为指标、投资回报率均可被有效的计量和比较。那第5点也是最重要的一点，也是最具有特色的一点，是专业导师辅导的一个特色技能，是隐形知识萃取。那懂得隐形知识萃取的专业导师，他不仅仅传承自己的经验和智慧，他也可以通过萃取他人的技能传承给学员。那当然呢，如果大家对这个认证导师感兴趣，请微信关注 Mentoring 课导师学员，也可以扫码关注。那关于我们下一期的欧洲导师与教练学会100场技术论坛的下期预告是来自美国的 Daniela， 他是一本畅销书的作者，然后他是 ICF 大师级教练，他也是有副总裁的身份，他被评为北美40位40岁以下的领袖。他带来的讲座题目是如何通过导师辅导实现并购后的整合，扩大业务规模。那还有一个好消息是有一个全球智库，组织隐形技能管理全球智库，它是那个总部在比利时布鲁塞尔。它将在就是瑞士达沃斯今年的11月12日、14日举办第2届全球组织隐形知识管理达沃斯论坛。 我们 Mentoring Co 是这个智库的唯一理事单位，所以我们也会参与进来。届时呢，会有很多的商界的领袖，还有一些全球顶尖的领袖会就是到达达沃斯。那我们同时呢，就为一些不能方便过去的一些有志之士呢，会开通线上的通道。那如果您对达沃斯论坛、对组织隐形知识管理感兴趣，那请扫码关注我们去了解一下这个参会详情和门票信息。如果现在您在听我们的讲座，那您赶紧扫码，说不定会有免费的获得免费门票的机会，线上门票的机会。那今天我们的100场导师技术论坛就到这里先结束了。那感谢各位的聆听。如果您觉得有价值，请您留下宝贵的建议。